next book I'm going to be talking about is called Magonia. It's called Magonia by Maria Devena Headley. Now, this book is going to be a little harder for me to talk about because it definitely has been so long since I've read this, and it's hard to remember exactly what happened. I remember I really enjoyed this book, but again, I was rushed trying to read it within a week, although it's not that long, so I don't know why I was so rushed, but I don't remember much. This book is about a girl named Azare who is basically drowning in thin air. She has a rare lung disease and she cannot breathe the air properly. She has had it since she was born, and it causes her to have an almost blue, sickly look to it, and she can't do much. She always has to have all this strong medication in order to live. And she only has one friend, a boy named Jason, who they have this whole forced romance thing, which I didn't care for much. She could have gone without all that. But basically, when she was a baby, she was switched out with a human baby and put on Earth to live for reasons that are spoilers. One day, Ozzy sees a ship flying in the sky, and everyone, all her family, just says, oh, it's probably a hallucination to all the medicine you're on. But she doesn't think it's a hallucination. She thinks it's real, and she heard someone on the ship calling her name. So one thing leads to another. She has this respiratory attack, and she cannot breathe. I forget exactly what happened that caused this, but she cannot breathe, and Azza dies. Azza dies on her birthday, and that is in the first 2 or 3 chapters of the book, so that is not a spoiler. Turns out, Azza is not a human. Azza is part of the species from a place called Magonia that lives on these ships in the sky, and they basically have this weird bird in their heart. It's weird, but there's these people who are also half bird, half human. They're basically like giant humanized birds, and they're kind of like the lower class here, and they're mistreated, and Azza, her mother, is the captain of the ship, so she's way up there, and I don't remember exactly, but it sounds like her mother has not done some great things, so people were after Azza, and that is why basically she was switched out with a human baby and put on Earth. But I won't go into much more detail, but in case you do want to read this, which it was a good book, but there was it was a forced romance with her friend Jason that I didn't think really needed to be there. She still would have had motivation to, basically, she needs to save the world, as most these kind of books are like, so, but they didn't need to have all that romance. I just think, like, their friendship would have been enough, but no, they had to have a romance. That's the only bad thing I can say about this book. I love the idea of the bird people and how they use these singing because they have a bird in their chest, and they use that singing power amplified from the bird to do things. Like, they can move objects without touching it. They can cast different spells with the singing, and I think it's really interesting and so cool, and like living above the air. Oh, and also that's why she can't breathe, because she's used to being able to breathe the thinner air, so the air down there is like breathing water for us. But yeah, it was an interesting book. Can't say it was my favorite, but it definitely was interesting.